things going on while your body is at rest. And we will start at the level of the physical. So, of course, when you are tired, when you go to sleep, on the physical level, you are relaxing the body, de-stressing the body, allowing your mental facility and observations to sort of shut down in the outer direction, turn them inward, so they can allow you to process information from your experiences of the day, to allow you to reorganize your perspective on things, and of course, physiologically, to allow your body to repair, to heal itself in the deep delta sleeps. The idea of the cycles of 3 cycles per second to 7 cycles per second allows your body, allows your chemistry, allows your cellular nature to, again, regenerate, revitalize by tapping into deep reservoirs, deep reserves of energy, allowing the energy to build back up to a certain level. The idea, again, is this can be very healing, can allow things to come back into alignment on a cellular, atomic, and subatomic level by relaxing all of the output that you experience on your daily waking regimen. So physiologically, as you all know, it is very healthy, very aligning to relax, to rest, to de-stress, to give the body a chance to go back to its natural state as much as possible, and then to feel revitalized when you wake up in the morning. Now, on the astral level and on the mental level, you have the opportunity, as I said, to sort of re-look at everything that happened in the day, reorganize your thoughts, allow yourself to learn lessons, allow yourself to extract information from your experiences of the day, and on a broader level, from the mental reaching into the astral, allowing you to start recognizing connections to other things, how everything is interrelated in the experiences you've been having, to give you some insights into how you may be able to move forward in physical life, having more awareness and more understanding of associations and relationships between different events. This happens on that high mental, lower astral level as you are resting, as you are recuperating, as you are energizing. But then on the higher astral, there are many different things that are going on while you are asleep. Again, not only the noticing of different things that may have happened in your physical life, but also being able to go to what we call the template level reality, where you can examine the basic blueprints of your agreements in life, make certain adjustments as may befit the idea of the themes that you chose to explore, examine and consider new avenues, new pathways that might be more representative of who you truly are and your path of least resistance. The idea, of course, is that as you allow on the physical level more and more de-stressing and relaxation and more aligning of your belief systems, then the things that are going on that you're learning on the astral plane can more readily be incorporated into your physical consciousness, your physical personality when you wake up. This often is what happens when you do, in fact, allow yourself to wake up feeling very refreshed, very eager to get on with your day, very excited, feeling more calm, more certain, more confident. This is when you have a real alignment between what you're doing on the astral plane and what you allow yourself to absorb on the physical plane by having aligned your belief systems and let go of those beliefs that are negative or fear-based and don't serve you, that are no longer relevant for you. You feel a new surge of energy because now the pathway between the astral level and the physical level is clearer and allows more energy to flow in a more hyperconductive and superconductive way. And this again results in more energization when you wake up in the morning. But not only are you allowing yourself to look at your agreements and your alignments and your associations on the astral plane and make whatever adjustments are necessary there for you to move forward in your physical reality experience, there are other things going on at the same time when you go a little bit higher into the astral level. Many of you will be attending different kinds of classes, spirit classes, where you are learning many different kinds of things about your relationship in the creation of your physical reality experience, many different kinds of ideas of who you are as a greater being. Many different ways are shown to you and taught to you. Choices are given to you to make on that level. You are learning about yourself as a spirit in relation to physical reality. You are learning to make certain kinds of adjustments beyond the physical in your energy, in your consciousness, that may be, again, more beneficial for you when you allow yourself to wake up into your physical dream, so to speak. But again, the idea is that the more you can clear yourself of negative or fear-based beliefs, the more you will realize that this is going on the astral level, that you may be attending, for lack of a better term, seminars and classes that teach you things that could be more applicable in your physical lives, that would allow you to experience your physical reality in a much more joyful, much more creative and imaginative way. But you have to really clear that path on the physical level to allow the physical personality to be capable of absorbing what you're learning more clearly on the astral levels. Now, going a little bit higher, there are things on the higher astral or spirit levels that you may also be engaging in. You may be interacting with spirit guides and friends and your soul family on that level, exchanging information and ideas, exchanging experiences for each other in various ways that may be helpful to each being's personal experience, either in physical, astral, or spirit reality. Making decisions for what it is you are attempting to accomplish as a greater being, what it is you are learning on the soul level that can aid and assist you in moving forward in the future, not only in physical reality, but in spirit as well. You may also be interacting and practicing for other things you may do when you leave the physical reality, like perhaps being a spirit guide yourself, being trained in that way. You may be attempting to assist individuals who may be having a challenge in their death, who may be remaining in the lower astral realms, not disconnecting from physical reality in the way that would best serve them. So you may be practicing to help them to be a spirit guide and help them cross over in easier ways, in more joyful ways, to recognize they may have in fact passed on, which sometimes many spirits don't, based on their belief systems. To aid and assist them in becoming more of who they are from the spirit side, as well as those who may be inclined from the physical side to help those ghosts cross over as well. This used to be known as the idea of a spirit guide from the physical level, a spirit psychologist, so to speak, but has sort of devolved into this idea and misinterpretation of exorcism. So the idea really is that it used to be that spiritual psychologists from the physical side and spiritual psychologists from the spirit side could aid and assist in the crossing over of many beings to help them adjust to the idea and remember who they truly are in spirit and move forward in that way. Now, aside from the physical and the astral levels and the spirit levels, in terms of the things you may be learning and the things you may be practicing for what you may call the future of your involvement on the spirit level as a spirit yourself, you also then are presented with many different pathways and many different choices for what might come next. Maybe not even remaining in the idea of the earth plane or the earth focus, so to speak. You may be more aware on that level now of connections that you have made to other dimensions, other extraterrestrial societies. And on the extraterrestrial question, in the process of sleeping and going to the higher spirit levels, you may now be more aware of the agreements you have made with regard to the evolution of the earth, the hybridization agenda, the creation of the hybrid races, the coming of the hybrid children to live among you physically on earth eventually, and the blending together that will allow earth to evolve forward into what we have termed the sixth hybrid race. But you also, on that level, may be very, very aware of the connections you have made to different extraterrestrial civilizations. You may now start to really allow yourself to play out and experience alternate realities, counterpart selves in those civilizations of Sirius or Pleiades or Arcturus energy or what have you, and allow yourself to really start to incorporate some of that information, experience, and energy more fully into what it is you are experiencing when you wake up in your physical reality on Earth, giving you the opportunity to broaden your perspective that Earth is really truly part of a galactic family. And therefore, again, by clearing out certain belief systems and fear-based ones in your physical personality, can more fully absorb what you're learning on the higher spiritual planes with respect to your connections to extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional civilizations and their experiences. And you can even on that level start to experience how they experience the idea of sleeping and what happens for them when they dream, what happens for them when they travel astrally. Because again, even though all spirit in a sense is the same kind of spirit, every different spirit has its own experiences in the reality that they have allowed themselves to dream they are in. And therefore, you can really start seeing the interconnections, the inner workings, the relationships between all the different civilizations that form a kind of galactic family, a galactic soul family, and may even on that level start to really experience the connections of higher levels of the soul, the oversoul, and the connections and extensions it may have with regard to the idea of the different civilizations as well as parallel reality counterparts that you may be connecting to. All of these things can be going on when you sleep. You are very active because remember, spirit doesn't really sleep. Only the physical form does. And again, this is mostly to regenerate, to recharge your batteries. And the reason for this, again, is because physical reality is something that isn't real. It's something that you have to continue to project. And because it's not really real in the sense of being solid and an actual place, you have to maintain it, so to speak, because it's not your natural state. You require reconnection to your natural state to bring through the energy and maintain the illusion that physical reality is real. And the way that you fundamentally know that physical reality is not real is that it deteriorates, because what is real never deteriorates. And therefore, physical reality, by expressing deterioration, decay, coming apart, segregation in that sense, separation in that sense, that's your first clue that physical reality is nothing more than a projected illusion of consciousness, and that you have to maintain it, even physiologically. You have to upkeep things and so on and so forth. And all of those things that have to do with maintenance and upkeep tell you that physical reality is a temporary manifestation, a projection of your consciousness, and isn't really as real as your true natural self, which requires no maintenance at all. In spirit, you don't sleep. In spirit, you don't eat. And all of these things are simply representative of the fact that this is your natural state, your natural eternal state, your infinite state. And from that state, you can explore many things as we have just outlined, and many other things that we may discuss at a future date. But you are, when you are sleeping, very busy on other levels in a number of different ways. And we are happy to present all of these different ideas for your consideration. And we will also add another exercise at another time that will allow you more opportunity to more consciously be aware of what you're doing on the astral and spirit levels with regard to Earth and extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional connections. But until then, allow yourself to simply, when you drift off to sleep, realize how involved, how connected, and how busy you are when you are not active in physical terms, when you're not really living the physical dream per se. There are many things going on, many exciting things you are learning, many amazing things you are doing, and we will leave you with that for the moment, until such time as we give you the meditation exercise that will help anchor this in at the end of this transmission. But for now, in return for the gift you are giving us of interacting with all of you, I ask now, how may we be of service to you? You may begin with your dialogue, your questions, if you wish. As we said, you're doing many things while you are asleep. You are attending classes, you're exploring different realities, you may be planning elements of your life, you may be adjusting elements of your life, you may be conferring with spirit guides or what used to be called elders in the councils that exist in the spirit realm to aid and assist and guide spirits in what they may choose to experience. So you're doing many different kinds of things. And again, the idea is that you have quite a lot of freedom in the spirit reality to look at things from a higher perspective. But remember that, in a sense, you become the higher mind, more or less, when you are in spirit. And then when you choose to awaken in physical reality, you usually leave a percentage of yourself behind in spirit, the non-physical self, that becomes the higher mind. So the idea is that when you wake up, sometimes the messages or the experiences simply have no way of being literally translated into physical terms. And that's why dreams may seem very strange, because again, the physical mind is limited in the number of symbols and the kind of symbols it can use to represent what happened in another dimensional plane, and things don't always equate one-to-one from the spirit world to the physical world in terms of the experiences. But the physical mind does its best. Things may seem confusing because they don't seem to make sense, but on another level, it was perfectly sensible when you had the experience. You don't really have to worry about the idea of the discrepancy between the physical and non-physical reality. You will have absorbed what you needed to absorb of the experience in a way that will work for you. Whether your physical mind can make sense out of it or not isn't always that important.
So it's kind of like a lot of people feel like, oh, I have to remember my dreams and I have to interpret them, etc. In actuality, you're doing what you need to do when you're having the dream. And then sometimes it can be of value to translate them or understand them if it
Yes.
stays residually with you when you wake up in the morning.
Oh,
But
yes.
in general, it's pretty self-sufficient process for your consciousness.
Yes, the things that you need to remember, the things you need to reflect on, you will most likely remember. Now, if you are creating the idea of fear-based beliefs within your physical mind, they can sometimes act as obstructions to the clear interpretation of what you remember as an experience on the higher levels. And so that might be a reason to remember the strangeness of the dream, to work out what the strangeness is all about. It can, again, be for a variety of reasons. Simple misinterpretation of things happening in another dimension, or it can actually be obstruction of the meaning of things because of beliefs within you that force you to look at those beliefs, get you to really look at them so you can make sense out of what happened, so you can gain clarity about the symbols that are represented by the dream. But again, you have to take this on a case-by-case, person-by-person basis as to the reason for why it might be important for them to examine and interpret a dream, as opposed to when it might not be that important.
Yes, because there certainly are lots of books about symbols in dreams and what they
Yes.
mean, but actually it can be your own symbols can be quite different from that
They
and the
can.
meanings that show up in books.
They can, but there are some generalities that are true for most of you in the collective consensus consciousness. So sometimes that will work just fine, but yes, you may always make slight adjustments or even have completely different symbols to represent the same concept. So again, it comes down to really knowing yourself and investigating yourself clearly so that you understand your own language on that level as well.
That sounds like an exciting project, actually, just keeping track of your dream symbols and starting to eke out what they mean.
Yes.
Many people have dreams like of being chased or trying to run and being in molasses or not being able to make a phone call because
Yes.
those kinds of dreams.
Well, some of them are relatively obvious in the sense that you may feel mired down, you may feel that communication is not forthcoming. Many of those things are relatively obvious as a simple symbol. But again, it depends upon what the person is processing, what it is they're experiencing.
And recurring dreams, where some people have the same dream from childhood over and over again.
Yes.
Um,
Can
again,
be can be the result of something that is being attempted to be delivered in communication to them or something that they have fixated on. Again, it can be different things. But if it happens over and over again, obviously it is something to pay attention to figure out whether it is something you fixated on, or whether there is a message attempting to get through from a higher level to you, or whether you are simply playing a game with yourself to remind yourself to focus on some particular thing when you stray too far. This technique can be used for a variety of reasons. Again, you have to know yourself to know in which way you might be using the idea of recurring dreams. It can also be an understanding of probabilities that may be more likely to occur than others, and reminding yourself that this has been set up to be inevitable. So again, it depends on how you're relating to the idea of a recurring dream and what purpose it serves in your life, and how you're actually using it to inform yourself of something that might be important.
So, for example, a person who can't remember the specifics of a dream, but it has a feeling to it. And
Yes.
in fact, it's not the first time they've had the dream. They just get that feeling again and again. What would be a good technique for deciphering the feeling?
All right, well, first and foremost, don't get up right away. When you wake from a dream, stay there for at least 5 minutes, maybe even a little bit longer, and see if more details of the dream come back to you to make itself more clear to you. That would be the first thing to do. If you still only wake up and still get up with only a feeling, then again you have to examine the belief system that would be creating that kind of a feeling and find out what that belief is.
Yes, because one person was asking, like, why do dreams fade away? Why do I have to go through this process of trying to remember the dream when I woke up in the morning, or wake up?
Yes, well, again, it's not about trying to remember, it's about allowing yourself to recall. But if you get up right away, then it can fade, because again, you have to get on about the business of your physical life. You again, no matter what, will have absorbed the information of the dream, and it might come out later in some circumstance or situation where you suddenly realize you have the information you need to handle whatever is going on, and that information may have been downloaded to you in a dream, and you simply didn't know that until the situation required you to recall that, or exhibit that ability that you gave yourself from the dream state. So it's not about trying to remember. If you don't remember, then just get on with your life. You still have the information in you somewhere. But again, if you stay in the bed and you stay calm and relaxed and ponder the idea of whatever it is you do remember, whether it's a feeling or an image or what have you of the dream, a lot of times more of the details will come back and it might clarify itself in that moment. So don't be in a rush to get up. Just stay within that floating experience and let whatever needs to come back to you come back as much as it possibly can. If nothing else comes back after 5 or 10 minutes, then fine, get up and be about your day.
And what about the idea of programming yourself to remember your dreams when you wake up?
You can do that. You can do that.
That's
It's the same technique that many people use when they say, I'm going to get up at 9 o'clock. And their inner clock goes, bing, there you are, 9 o'clock. So many people who have the ability to program other things like that in their mind, in their brain, can also use it to program the idea of remembering their dreams. But again, more often than not, it will require that you stay in a state of repose to make it easier so that you don't get distracted by the physical reality around you by getting engaged with it too strongly right away.
um well, this week, I guess we covered this, the idea of a strategy to interpret symbols and events in dreams.
Yes, we
Is
covered.
there anything else we can add to that? Okay.
Not at the moment.
All right. And how can I start lucid dreaming? Is there an easy and efficient process, meditation or prayer to ask for lucid dreaming? And how can I teach my physical mind not to be afraid of lucid dreaming?
Well, first, of course, in asking the question that way, the person would have to understand what they are afraid about lucid dreaming. And once they allow themselves to clarify what the fear-based belief is, what they think will happen if they go into lucid dreaming, that certainly would be a big step toward being capable of doing it, is getting the fear-based belief out of the way. Now, there are many techniques that exist on your planet for such things, and different ones will work differently for different people. We will have to leave it up to synchronicity to attract the working methodology that would be best for you. You can find it in some books. You can find other people who teach such things. But again, the first and foremost issue is you have to find out why you would be afraid to lucidly dream.
Any ideas why people would be afraid of lucid dreaming?
Well, they might think they're going to lose connection with physical reality and never come back. They might think that they might actually choose to never come back because what they've heard about the idea of the spirit reality and waking up in the dream is so much more wonderful than physical reality. So they have to be honest within themselves about the belief systems they have about their connection and relationship to physical reality, so that they also know that it's a choice that can be made, but that they won't necessarily make it and leave everyone behind. So there may be a vast array of reasons why they are afraid to lucidly dream. Yes, well, again, anything that is outside the vibration, the pure vibration of staying in that state, is going to bring you back to physical reality focus. And again, the idea is you do have a physical life to lead, you do have a physical life to live, and therefore you're not necessarily going to stay in the lucid dream state that long, because you made an agreement and chose a theme where you need to focus in physical reality dream. And the more you become lucid in physical reality, again, the easier it will be to become lucid in the dream state as well. So the primary purpose of having a physical life is to know yourself, to be yourself, and to become more conscious and more aware and more lucid in the physical dream. Then that can leak into the dream on the other side, and vice versa. But remember that in the dream state, often many people are setting up in the physical world what it is they choose and need to experience, and therefore they're focused on that as being, at the moment at least, more important than becoming lucid in the way that you're talking about it in the dream state.
It seems like during lucidity we have more abilities, like some people can fly. Some people notice that there's almost an etheric glow to the environment that they're in.
Well, that's because they're in an etheric reality. And as we said, glows and lights and colors are different there.
Okay. So is lucid dreaming an important step in being able to experience physical reality as more of a dream, and also of connecting with other dimensions and things like that?
It can be, but it depends upon the theme that was chosen by the person. It's not necessarily more important.
So it's a permission slip that if you feel attracted to it, that would be something to delve into more closely.
Yes, it's not
And
everyone's
understand
path.
it.
Yes, it's not everyone's path.
Just for our audience, there is a session on lucid dreaming that you did a number of years ago, and if you check with the chat, they can give you more information.
That can help if it works for some people, yes. But again, it depends on the path the person has chosen. It's in some ways more important to become more lucid in the physical dream.
So when we are more lucid in the physical dream, does it start to look more like a lucid dream?
Yes. And that's
And
when you can also be more lucid in the dream state, because you have broken down the barriers that you have in your mind about what physical reality is. And the idea of the physical dream and the non-physical dream start to blend together. You lose a sense of difference and separation, at least to a degree, that allows you to become lucid throughout the entire spectrum of your consciousness, both physical and non-physical. So becoming more lucid in physical reality and seeing physical reality as a dream and experiencing the malleability of space and time in physical terms can actually give you more experience in the lucid spectrum between physical and non-physical reality. It can cause less of a perspective of separation.
So compartmentalization is also an aspect of lucid dreaming, like the less you have to compartmentalize because it hasn't been dealt with, fearful, negative belief, things like that, the more challenging it would be to lucid dream or some version of that. And it's reflected in physical reality also, that
Yes.
you perceive more and you feel more like you're in a lucid dream when you have broken down the compartmentalization. Is that
In general, for most, yes. There is going to always be exceptions to any idea you may propose, because different people will do things in very different ways. But in general, yes, that's true.
And does time actually have a difference? For example, that individual was saying, oh, it happens so fast and then I'm out of it. Is it possible that they're actually in the lucid dream for a really long time and you just don't know it?
Yes, relatively speaking, time is very different in the higher states. It's not what you experience in physical reality.
And for
What may
lucid,
seem to be 5 minutes in physical reality could actually be experienced as 5 years in the non-physical state.
and in lucid dreaming, is that a way that you can connect with hybrid children and other beings in other
I think you know
dimensions?
the answer to that is yes.
Yes, I guess so. Just confirming.
All right.
Okay, now prophetic dreams are also a big question. Some people have prophetic dreams that happen years ago, and then they see it coming to fruition now.
Yes.
Other times, there's one person expressed a concern that the things that they were shown in this prophetic dream are actually connections they're making to other realities of other people that are having those experiences. And what would be the purpose of being shown something that's happening to somebody else like that?
Well, one purpose would be your reality contains the probability of what's happening in this other parallel reality, but you get to decide whether or not to keep the energy going in that direction or to change it and not necessarily let that play out in your physical parallel world. Wouldn't that be of benefit to many people to examine what's going on in other parallel realities so that they can pick and choose what it is they prefer to experience in their own?
So, in essence, most of us are going through the theme here of transmuting darkness into light.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So, any dream or lucid dream or prophetic dream that you have can be brought more to earth, I guess, in the sense of recognizing it's about transmuting darkness into light. Is that?
It's a simple way of looking at it, but it can work that way. And again, always remember that it's not about a prediction of the future, it's about a sensing of the energy that exists right now, and therefore being given an indication of where that energy might lead and how it might manifest if it doesn't change. So again, you get to decide whether to keep the energy going in that direction or to change it.
So, if they see a prophetic catastrophe in some way and they're feeling very fearful about what they've seen, what would be the way to process through something like that?
Well, first of all, not be fearful. Understand you're being shown a probable reality, not an inevitable reality, unless you're also sensing that there is so much momentum and energy behind it that it's unlikely to change. Nevertheless, it doesn't serve anyone for you to have a fear reaction of those things. The idea is that there still can be positive actions taken to either mitigate it to some degree, to let people know what the probabilities are, and maybe with the collective energy of more people knowing, then they can maybe steer it in a different direction. Or again, to simply prepare yourself to deal with the idea that it's going to manifest, and therefore allow yourself to be of service and be of assistance to those who may go through it in a negative way, and therefore be of service to them to bring them out of it in a more positive ending or conclusion.
So it's almost like you can prepare for that particular disaster, I suppose. And then at the same time, that also teaches you how to maintain being at the center of the cyclone in a sense,
Yes.
the eye of the hurricane, so that you maintain your balance and your neutral posture while at the same time recognizing that this may be a reality that's going to manifest.
Yes, because many people may have believed that they required that idea. And if it's not something you necessarily need to experience directly, then you can be something that's a stable influencing to help them recover from such experiences in a helpful way, in a positive way.
So, these questions have to do with waking up from a dream and coming back to the physical body. There's a transitory experience that we'd like you to explore, and also why it can sometimes take time to feel resynchronized with and grounded in the body and the personality.
Yes.
So I guess they're asking you to explore what is this transitionary process of going from sleep into wakefulness?
Well, again, different people will experience it in different ways, depending on their relationship to the idea of the transition from spirit to physical reality experience. Of course, many people who experience the idea of spirit or astral realms and out of body experiences get very used to it very quickly because that's your natural state. You remember who you are. You feel more expanded. You feel more loved. You feel more supported. So many people will have a little bit of resistance or a little bit of sluggishness, lowering their vibration again to reclaim the idea of the physical dream, to re-experience physical reality. And therefore it can require a little bit of time because there might be a little reluctance to give up the freedom and the expansion that you experienced in the non-physical realm. It's not unusual, but again, most people are willing to play out the theme that they chose, even if it is a little bit slow or sluggish to reconnect to that idea, even if there's a little bit of resistance or reluctance to do so. And that can be the reason for the slower transitions, whereas some people, depending on what they experience in the non-physical realm, might jump right back in, might snap right back in because they're so eager to continue with whatever it is they played out or planned out in the non-physical realm. It depends.
So it could also reflect the idea that if physical reality is very challenging right now, the idea of waking up into it may have resistance to that.
Yes, you experience a lot of this or hear a lot of this with what you call near-death experiences, where the person is out of the body, so to speak, for an extended period of time and gets used to the idea of being an expanded spirit and remembers who they are and how it feels and so on and so forth. And then you find that sometimes when they are resuscitated, brought back into the physical realm, a lot of them can actually experience anger for the moment at being so restricted again. But again, they usually bring with them the knowledge of an experience that will benefit them in life, and they will usually apply that and get over the anger relatively quickly.
I have heard of people who get quite depressed after that and go through a lengthy process of
Yes.
being depressed.
Yes. But again, the idea is that they may not simply be made to understand that they were given a gift that they can bring back and apply to the physical world. And they may simply be dwelling on the idea that, oh, I'm back here again, and now I have to go through this and do that. So their focus is important in terms of allowing themselves to know that more often than not, when you visit, again, the spirit realm, which is your natural home, your natural state, if you do return to the physical realm, there is a purpose to that. And if you focus on the idea that you've been given some information that can actually be of great benefit and service to your world, then it won't necessarily be experienced as depression of the physical realm. Remember, the physical reality isn't real, and the way you know that is it has to be maintained. It decays. That which is real doesn't decay, it doesn't degenerate, it doesn't decompose. So sleep is for the purpose of recharging, in a sense, the batteries of maintaining the concept of physical reality as an experience. Now, a coma will usually be for the purpose of just regenerating the physical form itself. It will allow you a long hibernation that will allow for certain repairs to occur in the physical form. There may be a connection in spirit in that sense, but not necessarily bringing back with it the idea of any information that would alter the path of your life once the physical body is regenerated. Anesthesia, on the other hand, is something that puts you into a suspension that in most cases will prevent any kind of cognition from occurring, so that it's more like you just sort of skipped over a track. So that one moment you were conscious and then you were not, and then the next moment of consciousness leaves a gap, in a sense, in your life that you barely feel. And again, it doesn't mean that you weren't out doing things, but it doesn't bring back with it anything that's pertinent to add to your life per se, at least not consciously.
So, but some level, you do remember what's happening to you like for example, if you go under anesthesia to have a tooth removed or something like that, you may not have a memory of the
Yes.
event. However, some level of you does, and the
Of
universe
course,
records
of
it,
course,
right?
of course. And you will know all of that when you're back in spirit and going through a life review. You'll see every single second.
But
Many
it's
things you
at
may have
that,
forgotten or never even knew occurred. You will experience every single second of it, at least as an observation, if nothing else.
I see.
And you will know what you were doing during that time.
So back to that idea of process of going into a dream state and coming out. I know that our scientists have documented the different stages of going to sleep,
Yes.
and particularly that stage where you seem not to be able to move. It can happen either when
Yes.
you're going in or coming out of a dream, right?
Yes. You're fixing yourself in a certain vibrational state. Now, this can happen for a variety of reasons. Of course, as we said, a lot of it happens sometimes when you're shifting into a different dimension because you're no longer really controlling your movements as a physical being, and therefore your body remains rigid. So again, this can serve a variety of purposes. It can act as a buffer for a transition from one state to another. It can simply be representative of the fact that you want to make sure that you stay and remain in a certain state for a variety of reasons while you're out doing something else. Again, it can be for a number of reasons.
And this person was saying that they made the decision to become vegan.
Yes.
And then once they did that, they started having amazing dreams, like tons and tons of dreams. Is
Yes.
this common that diet will affect your ability to remember your dreams or what you experience?
The choice to change the diet is a reflection of a change in energy already within your consciousness. It's just that now, because you have made that shift to a higher frequency within yourself, you simply no longer have the urge to eat things that you would consider to be of a lower, denser vibration. So it's not that the vegan diet affects the dreams, it's that you've already gone to a higher level that promotes those kinds of experiences, and the vegan diet is a reflection of the change you've made within your frequency.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Always
yes,
good to remember these are all reflections and
all
they
reflections.
seem to be driving it, but no, they're actually
They're reflections of a change that already exists. Now, that doesn't mean that the foods are not lighter in frequency. Of course they are. But again, that's a reflection of the higher frequency that you've already made within yourself.
Can you explain how we shift through the frames of physical reality while we are dreaming? Do we continue to shift through the frames when we are unconscious, or are there special parameters for our unconscious selves?
You are always shifting whether you know it or not. That's just the fundamental nature of the structure of existence, because there is only one now moment. And anything, in any way, at any time that you experience as a difference between one moment and another moment, if you can perceive the idea of a difference, you've shifted. So it doesn't matter whether you're physical or non-physical. It's just that the time frames operate differently. Some are faster, some are slower, in terms of how you perceive the creation of time by the shifting of your consciousness. That's all relative. But there's always a shift, always a shift. The only place that has no shift is the unbroken homogeneous one that has no experience or awareness of itself. But from all that is, all the way down, everything is shifting. That's the nature of its existence, because there's only one moment in which to experience anything. Therefore, you have to experience the same moment from a different perspective to notice any kind of a difference of any nature whatsoever. So shifting is automatic, not to make a vehicle pun.
As at a spiritual school, I was awoken one night with a ball of light and the sound of a bird and breath and a piano in my room. How are visions or experiences like this different from dreaming?
Well, they are, in a sense, to use a word, intrusions from the dream reality into your physical awareness. So in other words, there's a kind of a bleed through or a leak through, which means you have sort of diminished the separational barriers between physical and non-physical reality. and are experiencing bleed-throughs from other realities and other experiences that you may be connected to, but usually shut out of your physical life.
And is there a meaning to this vision, or is that possible for you to give any insight on that?
Well, again, it can be representative of connections that you have that inform you in this life. So let's say the idea of hearing a piano, maybe connecting to a very musical life, and the idea that the vibrations, the frequencies of music may be of some assistance to you. It may be a soothing energy for you in this life, or it may be something that inspires you to be more creative. It depends on the person.
How can we dream of you? How can we communicate with you in dream form? And is there something that would help us achieve this more easily?
All right, well, again, more often than not, you will most likely connect to the entire frequency of my people, my world, my reality, rather than a specific individual other than your own counterpart or future self, which is more likely. However, if you remember any conversations that we have had, or remember any time that we have communicated with any of you, remember the vibrational feeling, the frequency that you felt, even the timbre of the channel's voice can put you in a state where you are more easily connecting not only to my collective vibration, but to my vibration to some degree as well. Now, again, it's not always important to connect specifically to me, but you can certainly use the specificity of your interactions with me, specifically as an individual, to connect to whatever you need to within our collective vibration, including, again, if you have a counterpart there. So don't insist that it has to be me, but you can use the memory of these experiences and the tonal vibrations of the frequencies that we give off in order to connect to whatever you need to that is a representation of our reality. Remember, no insistence.
This question is, you've said that you do not dream and you don't sleep. So do you ever get bored with the experience of consciousness itself?
First of all, I said we do not sleep. We do not dream in the way that you do because we are always dreaming. So no, there's no boredom. We're constantly walking through multidimensional experiences of different kinds of dreams, including physical reality. So we didn't mean that we don't dream at all. We simply don't dream the way you do, in the sense of disconnecting from the physical world, so to speak, or shutting out your focus of the physical world, because we're always awake and we're always dreaming.
So do you miss sleeping and being unconscious at
No.
all?
First of all, the change in my society happened even before I was born, so I've never slept. So there's nothing to miss.
But you have other connections that tell you what sleep is like. For example, when Darryl is sleeping, is it easier for you to connect with him and communicate with him in dream state, or is it easier just direct communication?
It depends on the type of connection. It depends on what's going on in the channel's life. In general, yes, it can be easier because the channel's physical consciousness is set aside to some degree. But that doesn't mean we haven't communicated and can't communicate, and doesn't mean the channel is not consciously aware of our communication even when he's awake, especially after 38 years of experience with us. He's gotten used to it. So sometimes the communication can be there, and it's like he drops into a kind of a daydream. So he understands how that feels, and he understands what that experience is, and he recognizes when it happens. But again, yes, in general, it can be a little bit easier when he is asleep.
And like that time, as was shown in the First Contact documentary, of when he experienced, I guess, in a dream state,
Yes.
where you were coming off the ship and then you were eye to eye.
Yes, that happened in a slightly shifted, altered physical reality or quasi-physical reality, which is usually where our communications take place when he's asleep.
And it was designed to show him how your frequency is in relation to ours as physical beings, and the amount of clarity I believe you would need to have in order to maintain your own persona in your presence.
Correct.
Do Do you all use any kind of permission slips for getting into other states of consciousness?
If that is necessary, it will synchronistically arrive and is a very fluid and smooth experience with no real need for a request or a decision to be made consciously about what those permission slips might be. Because again, everything is interacting, interpenetrating as a multidimensional dream in our waking state. So if a permission slip is needed, it is simply there. Now, you could say that our spacecraft are a type of permission slip because they are a crystallized physical symbology of our higher minds, and we communicate telepathically with the craft. And you could say, therefore, the craft is a permission slip because ultimately we don't really need the craft, but we also maintain the craft not only for a permission slip for our purposes, but for your purposes and other civilizations who would rather and prefer to make it make more sense to have open contact by seeing an extraterrestrial arrive in a spaceship rather than just popping into your living room unannounced.
Although for our initial contacts that many people may have one-on-one, wouldn't popping in be more likely to happen than somebody showing up on a ship?
Not
Or
necessarily. Again,
not
it depends on the person, it depends on the theme, it depends on where they're at vibrationally in their path.
So it could be either one in terms of the
Yes.
contact experience.
Absolutely.
And it could even just be auditory, right?
Absolutely. And it can even be just like what we're experiencing right now.
Oh,
This is a
contact.
form of contact.
It's so much fun.
Yes, it is.
If you all don't sleep, why do you have day and night cycles on the planet? Is that
Well-
for other beings or?
Well, that's just simply the nature of the planet. And remember, a long time ago, we used to sleep. That doesn't really change anything about the natural cycle of the planet.
What use does dream interpretation serve for a first contact specialist? When people dream of you channeling through a body like Darryl or myself, do the human channelers also gain the experience of the dream?
Yes. And it can be a way to practice the idea of bringing higher frequency energies and making connections telepathically to different beings. Remember, you do a lot of things in your dream state as practice for what you will ultimately experience in physical reality.
So if a person is having a dream of Darryl channeling you and they are remembering that, that is also something that Darryl can tap into and experience or get benefit from?
Well, it depends on if he needs to do so. It depends on if it's relevant for him. The channel has been told many times that he appears in people's dreams and that they have conversations with him. So, does he need to know that? Maybe sometimes he does, and maybe sometimes he doesn't. It depends on what he needs and what's relevant for him to know. That doesn't mean he's not active and interacting with other people in the astral realm from time to time that they may remember as a dream. And it brings the energy of us into play with them because the vibration in the astral realm would be very similar to our vibration as you experience it in this channeling. But again, does the channel always need to know that? No.
To control what occurs to us in this reality from above? Or would you define our existence here on Earth as a bubble reality?
We can define it as a bubble reality. It's an interesting and convenient way to talk about your particular universe. But that's, again, just an arbitrary label. If it works for you, use it. Now, the idea, again, of leaving the physical reality permanently, which I believe is what was being asked, is, again, you have your own timing. You will leave when you're ready to leave. You will leave when you're done with the theme that you chose to explore, unless you decide to explore a different theme, which is now possible in your physical transformational reality. But most of you will have set up some circumstance where you will simply leave when it is time to leave, when you're done with what you're doing, with what you're exploring, like anything. And again, if you're always curious about when that time might be, as we have suggested before, you can always lie down on the floor, you can close your eyes, you can say, I'm ready to leave. I'm done with what I'm doing in physical reality as an experience. And then if you can count to 10 and then open your eyes, you're not ready to leave. You're not done. Because it should be that easy to leave. If you are done, you would leave.
Wait, does that mean you can program having a peaceful transition when your time comes?
Why not?
How
And
would you
again,
program that?
well, again, clarify everything in your life so that there is no fear-based beliefs remaining, so that you don't have to believe that there's any suffering needed or anything like that. And sometimes you will know that many people, just before, a split second before something happens that might actually kill them, will already be out of the body.
What about those people who are loved and have really good lives and everything, and then at the very end, they have an extremely difficult transition into spirit, painful experiences.
Again, there's a reason for everything. And it may have more to do with those that they're leaving behind in physical reality than it has to do with them. So again, as always, case by case, person by person, there's no one general, one size fits all to those particular kinds of experiences.
And I'm just thinking of the hybrid children. What's a good way to know if you're having a hybrid child dream? What are some symbols that typically show up in the dream?
Well, this is a large subject and it can take many forms. Perhaps if you have a dream literally of a hybrid, that would be obvious. But if you also see animals in nature or nature spirits in your dreams that seem particularly mischievous, it doesn't mean it is a hybrid child, but it can be one taking that form to have some fun and play around with you. But there are many other ways in which you can perceive that idea, and too many to go into at this time.
There is one where people see like a jar or something with a being inside of a jar. Is that?
It can be a representation of the hybridization chambers that they are gestating in once removed from the womb. And therefore it could be a calling card that hybrids will use. But again, it depends upon the hybrid child.
So if a child was in that state or stage of development as a hybrid, and you're there as in the dream state, you can communicate with that being at some stage similar to human fetus that is inside the body?
Telepathically, yes. Just as in what you call post-hypnotic regressions, you can take a person back into the womb and they're communicating telepathically with many different things.
Do these fetuses have the capability of communication right away, or do they have to reach a certain stage of development?
The communication can happen right away, but that simply may be coming from the spirit itself rather than through the fetus. If the fetus is not developed to the point where telepathic communication is possible through the brain, then the communication telepathically would probably be coming directly from the spirit that hasn't really fully connected with the body yet.
I see. And do all hybrid children speak English, or how do they speak to each other? Do they have other languages?
Well, they speak telepathically, but they are learning some different languages that exist on your planet in order to blend in ultimately. But telepathically is what they use mostly among themselves. They do practice different languages and have a lot of fun with that, especially when they get something wrong. They laugh a lot.
Will they have names when they come here, or do we give them names?
It can be either. It's up to them to choose. Most of them will choose names from nature. But again, some of them may allow the adults that they meet to name them. It depends. Again, these are personal things. It depends on what they are attracted to do.
And the age that many of the children will be when we finally meet them here.
There will be exceptions, but most likely the concentrated range will be somewhere between 7 and 13.
And as a 7-year-old, though, they would be much higher functioning than a 7-year-old in our particular
Well,
species.
they will be much higher functioning than a 7-year-old used to be on your planet, but many 7-year-olds now being born on your planet are extremely high functioning.
Yes, we have noticed that. It's amazing what some of the kids can do now.
Yes.
I've noticed that some people are unaware of the different frequencies the 5 hybrid races normally vibrate at, and they become confused when they're hearing that a general interaction with Sasani beings is not appropriate right now, but only interactions with grays is possible. And can you summarize what the typical vibrational levels are of each of the 5 hybrid races and compare that to present day humans?
Yes. Well, we're not going to go into numbers, but we'll give you a general curve. The idea, again, is that the grays themselves, being hybrids, are still operating on a relatively low frequency. The frequencies got higher with the next version of the hybrids, the Mizani, and higher still with our civilization, the Sasani. But then it was recognized that the vibrations had to go down somewhat, or at least be altered in a certain way that became more compatible with humanity at a certain level, when humanity reaches that level, in order for the blending to take place that would allow Earth to evolve into the 6th hybrid race. So it kind of went up, and then it kind of went down, but not exactly down as you understand down. It simply was altered in a way, flavored in a way, that would allow the 4th and 5th hybrid races, the Shayayel and the Yayayel, and of course the Shalanaya, to still exhibit high frequencies, but the high frequencies that would be compatible vibrationally with evolved humans when humans are ready to have open contact with them. So you kind of see a peak and a decline, but not a decline in the normal sense, an alteration.
The decline doesn't mean that they start thinking negative thoughts, basically.
Correct. It's more of an alteration that is done in order to make them more vibrationally compatible with interacting with humans during open contact.
And you mentioned that Sasani children are born through the parents going into a meditative state and then forming an energy bubble, and then the being is created.
In the overlapping bubbles, yes.
Yes. When will humans be capable of this kind of procreation?
About 1,000 years.
Okay.
Give or take.
Oh, I know. And I meant to ask you, when you were talking about the vibrational states of the hybrids, since possibly the Pleiadians would be the first that we would have contact with.
Possibly.
What would their vibrational range be?
Well, again, it's high, but it also exhibits the same kind of alteration that we just described, so that they make themselves more vibrationally compatible. In other words, their vibration normally is very high, but they don't show you all of their frequency. So the idea is they make themselves more compatible by sort of closing doors on some of their frequency when they interact with humans. In much the same way that coming through the channel this way only represents maybe 5, 10, at the most 15% of my total vibration. So we make an alteration that makes us more vibrationally compatible, but the idea of being face to face with us would not allow that filtering to happen in quite the same way. But the Pleiadians are willing to do that because they are more closely related to you as your kind of genetic cousins.
Is there anything you could tell us about the Andromedans?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap up in a minute here. Here's one question. You had mentioned that unconditional love is the frequency of existence itself.
Yes.
And you've said creation is only slightly more positive than negative. And does the negative polarity exist only in an incarnate experience?
No, it exists on every level. Again, only in the one where there is homogeneousness and no experience, no awareness, no brokenness, so to speak, is there none of the idea of the experience of positive or negative or neutrality. But in all that is, instantly, it creates the idea of the polarities and the neutrality becoming the trinity of positive, negative, and neutral. It exists on every level. Now, how you experience it is very different. And you don't have to experience negative things on certain higher levels, but you become more aware of the possibility and the probability of all the different ways that negativity could be chosen. You just don't choose it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. as an option. Look at the yin-yang symbol. Always remember that. There is the light side and the dark side, but in each, there is a drop of the other, because the other is always accessible. No matter how far you go into the darkness, there's always a drop of light. No matter how far you are into the light, there's always a drop of darkness that is accessible to you. It doesn't mean you have to experience it, but it's always a choice.
Well, on that note, it's really good to know that, I guess what you're saying also is, if there is any dimension of time in your experience, then there's polarity, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that it's, what is the level of consciousness, the highest level of consciousness that experiences polarity?
All that is.
Ah, I see. And how does that conform to the ideas of angels and those levels of consciousness?
Well, angels, as we have said, are kind of like the first reflection of all that is. And that's why you have the story of the angels of light and the angels of darkness. They are the first story, the first reflection beyond all that is, that expresses the concept of polarity, or contains it at least. And therefore you have, shall we say, ensconced that idea of polarity even in the angels, because you talk about light angels and dark angels.
So if a person thinks that they are experiencing themselves coming from a reality where there is no negativity, it's not that the negative does not exist, it's that it's not perceived, or it's not related.
It's not expressed.
It's not expressed.
Yes. It is validated for what it is, but not chosen or expressed as an experience.
So essentially, an angel or any consciousness level below that would not experience negativity, but has recognition of negativity.
Yes, unless they wish to experience negativity. It always can be chosen for a variety of reasons. And again, it depends on the level, it depends on the frequency, as to whether it is more likely than not that it might be available as a choice, such as in your own world.
Whereas in your world, does anyone ever choose a negative experience?
No, thank you. Not now. There used to be those experiences when we were first evolving, after we were created, but no, not now. There's no reason.
And so illness doesn't exist in your world.
Not anymore.
But does illness always reflect the idea of negativity, or
no? No. Again, please remember, you can use positive things in a negative way. You can use negative mechanisms in a positive way, just as you're doing right now. You're using a negative mechanism of limitation to limit your greater consciousness in order to have a physical experience. That's a positive way to use a negative mechanism.
So, and maybe one of the greatest lessons from all of this is that there's always a silver lining, and if you can find it, it will shift you to a positive state.
Yes, and there's always a dark cloud too.
And best to leave that one alone. Huh?
Maybe, maybe not, because dark clouds produce wonderful rain.
That's true.
Thank you.
So it's all good.
If you look at it that way, yes. So.
Oh, and there was a request for a Halloween story.
A Halloween story. All right. We are going to pull this story from what you would recognize as the channel's future consciousness. In other words, it's a story that's in his consciousness that he hasn't realized yet and will write in the future. Of course, he will realize it now because we'll imprint it on him and impress it on him so he could write it sooner than he otherwise would have done. This is not an interference because these things are available to us through the channel's consciousness. And since it has to do with a story that he will have written, then we can pull it now because it is allowed to do so. This is called The Demon with the Sweet Tooth. Jack and Jill, 10-year-old twins, are made up like skeletons for Halloween. They have done this on their own because Jack is very excited about special effects makeup and has done a wonderful job making he and his twin sister look just like Day of the Dead Skeletons. And they go around in their neighborhood collecting candy. And they arrive at the 13th house that evening. And a woman opens the door who is dressed like a clown and looks at them and says, "Oh, what wonderful costumes. Here is some candy for you." They very quickly say thank you and turn around and walk away because to them, clowns are even scarier than skeletons. And they continue on their way and arrive at the end of the block. And they look down the block and it is very dark. There are very few streetlights. And Jill says, "Well, maybe we should go the other way." And Jack says, "Well, our big sister, Rachel, has said that some of the best candy is on this block. So we shouldn't be afraid of that." And Jill says, "But Rachel should have been with us." "Yes," says Jack, "but now she is in high school and says that chaperoning two young children is less exciting to her than going to her parties, her Halloween parties. Ooh, big deal, big grown-up parties. So we are now on our own for the moment. So let us go down this block and collect some more candy." And so Jill reluctantly agrees, and they move down the block. They don't get more than maybe about 100 feet when all of a sudden, a huge, scary, demonic clown shows up in front of them and howls at them on the wind. And they freeze, not able to speak or run. And the demonic clown with glowing green eyes reaches out and snatches away their bags of candy and devours it in an instant. And then belches and smells like a sewer and disappears. And it takes about a minute or two for Jack and Jill to be able to speak. And when Jack speaks, he says, "Wow." And Jill says, "Wow, that's all you have to say after that horribly frightening experience? Wow?" And Jack says, "Well, that was some of the best special effects I've ever seen." And Jill says, "You mean you believe that wasn't real?" He says, "How could it be, silly? Demons aren't real. I suppose you still believe in Santa Claus too, don't you?" And Jill says, "Well, if you're sure, well, how did our candy disappear?" "Well, it's a magic trick," says Jack. "You remember seeing that magician on TV make that elephant disappear? Well, candy should be easy peasy by comparison." "Well, I wonder who did that," said Jill. "They must have some amazing technology to do something like this." "Oh, yes," said Jack, "probably a hologram connected with some magician in disguise that we didn't see. Who knows? But that was a wonderfully frightening experience. Let's go down this block and see what else we can find." So they agree to continue now with empty bags, having to need to fill them up again. And again they go from house to house and get more candy. And by the time they have finished with the 26th house, again, 2 times 13, the demon clown shows up again and with a horrible howl on the wind, snatches their candy away and devours it again, and belches once more and leaves. Vanishes into the shadows. And Jack and Jill said, "All right, well, enough of this. We're not going to have any candy left if this continues. I wonder who's behind it and how they were able to do this again at the other end of the block. We thought maybe it would just be near their own house, but clearly they're capable of doing something like this no matter where we are. So let's test that, because I'm going to make sure that this doesn't happen again, because we need to keep our candy." So they pick up their empty bags and they go down the other side of the block. And again, after they reach the 39th house, 3 times 13, sure enough, the demonic clown manifests again and towers over them with its glowing green eyes and reaches out. But Jack and Jill react quickly and hide their bags of candy behind their backs. And Jack says, "No, you shall not have our candy again." And Jill says, "Yes, be gone, O demon clown." And they have a laugh about this because, again, they're pretty sure that this is just a special effect. But as they confront the demon, surprisingly, shockingly, the demon clown begins to cry. And as it continues to cry, it starts to shrink. And it continues to cry and continues to shrink. And it shrinks down and changes into the image, into the ghost of a 7-year-old little boy. And this 7-year-old little boy, Ghost, continues to weep in front of them, floating in the air before their eyes. And suddenly, Jack and Jill recognize the little boy, Ghost. "Josh Graves," Jack says. "But you died last year." "Yes," said the ghost, whimpering. "I was sick for a very long time. And I could never go trick-or-treating, and finally I died, never having experienced Halloween. And so I became angry and jealous of all the children that go around trick-or-treating and want to snatch their candy away, because if I can't have it, you can't have it." And Jack and Jill felt compassion for the little boy who had died. And Jill said, "I'll tell you what. Why don't you come trick-or-treating with us now?" "Do you mean it?" said Josh. "Oh, yes, it would be great fun, because you can actually scare the people after they give us candy, because you are a real ghost. And that would be so much fun." Well, the little ghost boy stopped his sniffling and said, "Yes, I would love to do that." And so the three of them traipsed off and went trick-or-treating and received a lot of candy and gave a lot of scares. And at the end of it, Jack and Jill said, "You know, I have an idea. Why don't you come trick-or-treating with us every year?" "Oh, I would love that," said Josh Graves. And so finally he was befriended by someone living who could allow him to experience trick-or-treating and Halloween in the way it was meant to be experienced on Earth. And so in the meantime, he returned to spirit and felt the freedom that wasn't his until Jack and Jill had befriended him. But every year he would return, and the three of them would go trick-or-treating together. The end.
Oh my goodness, that's wonderful.
Yes, it is. And so maybe many of you this Halloween will befriend a spirit and go trick-or-treating together, knowing that they are there with you, whether you can see them or not, having as much fun as you're having, so that you can know you can always go trick-or-treating with the spirits on the other side. So now, allow yourselves to relax and experience the meditation that we have for you this day.
Thank you so much, Bashar. We love you so very much.
Our unconditional love to you all, Nania. Again, prepare now for your meditation.